going down the neck. There's no room for anything else to make its way down into the esophagus. Smee finds them and agrees to help Slightly move Arthur to the beach. I was a little annoyed to see how easy it was for Slightly and Smee and the other hybrids to sneak around the Prodigy facility while patrolling guards just marched ahead, oblivious like stormtroopers in Star Wars. But there's a couple ways to interpret this. Maybe, like everyone on the show, human characters and even their security systems are just really poorly thought out, but also doesn't it seem like Kirsch might have cleared the way and made it easy for them to escape and even told these security guards, no, just ignore these two kids with the body of one of the scientists. However, that does not excuse the weird logic of why two hybrids of supposedly superhuman strength struggled this much to tandem carry one skinny human around. But in fairness, the actors who played these characters are human and would struggle to carry weight like that. Kirsch arrives at the lab and sees Toodles' body while these flying creatures buzz around, but the TSLS sheep and the now fully formed xenomorph and that old sleeper agent, the Deep Plumicare that we are all waiting to wreck these fuckers, are all locked in their chambers. Kirsch stops the alarm from his tablet, and definitely after seeing this episode, it just really seems like Kirsch allowed this breakout and allowed Arthur to get infected as a way of drawing Morrow and these other Weyland-Yutani forces into his trap. Also, he seems to have his own angle and why he would want his own personal chest burster. Now, one of these flying beetles spews acid onto the breaker box, melting the metal, and it gets zapped so that it can be contained. The TSLS takes note of all this, like he's counting every single one of the human weapons that he sees in this facility. Then they zap the other one by Toodles and contain it too. I love that they use this little dustpan to collect it and then scrape it down into this also very cool suitcase. It's like a little lunchbox that they carry around. While Kirsch and Boy Cavalier talk in this lab, in the background is this black silhouette that I think it's just Adam Ines, or maybe it's just a guard on the other side of the door, but either way, it looks menacing in the background of these shots. When Kirsch identifies the dead hybrid as Isaac and then corrects to Toodles, I like how Boy gives him this judgy stare, like just the idea that Kirsch would even allow these hybrids to rename themselves with nicknames away from the Peter Pan Lost Boys nomenclature that Boy clearly is obsessed with, just really pisses off the trillionaire. Kirsch explains the fly's diet.
They digest their food outside their bodies. Organic matter must have been scarce in their world, so they eat mostly minerals.
So confirmed, the acid is less of a weapon than it is just basic stomach acid, and they don't really need tissue to eat and just have a digestion process that can derive energy somehow from rocks and other metals. Boy quickly moves on to restoring Isaac, but Kirsch says conceptually it's possible, but they haven't cracked it yet, which tells us that the transference process from the sick kids' dying bodies to the hybrid bodies worked somewhere in the synapses, or the gray matter, or the electrical signals between the two, but they're unable to replicate that step from hybrid body to another hybrid body, meaning that you kind of need an original human donor to really kickstart that process. They watch the tape of the moment the TSLS sheep rammed the glass to get Toodles locked in that chamber. Boy Cavalier is immediately impressed, asking why it would do this, hinting at the creature's ability sympathy to cooperate with other species in a way that doesn't immediately directly benefit itself. And I just like that a trillionaire jerk like this is only impressed when certain murderous aggressions are displayed. Like he seems to respect a fellow disruptor who just does shitty things for no immediate apparent reason. When Wendy walks in, the xenomorph perks up like a child now in the vicinity of its mother. Wendy asks,
"What happened to Isaac?"
Science.
No, we can't. We're premium.
What a great exchange, because literally anything physical that happens anywhere could be described as science, but for Wendy to consider their hybrid bodies premium sounds like a term that she might have echoed from Boy Cavalier or from Kirsch or Dame Sylvia, that at some point someone compared the hybrid bodies to premium fuel and older models like what Kirsch has to something like regular unleaded. We do know that diesel fuel still exists in this universe because we saw a big tank of it on the dock. Boy tells Wendy not to tell the others. And precisely on that line, the xenomorph superimposes over Wendy, showing this to be the thought that has incepted into her mind. She doesn't see the xenomorph as a monster, but rather as a child she now has this telepathic link with. But is it really telepathic if she's using these verbal commands? Either way, there's something beyond just that mere language that brings them together. She demonstrates this with a little chirp here.
Can't just erase things.
Wendy takes it personally that they erase part of Nib's memory and thus her identity. Now, we see it clearly in this scene and even better later on in Outdoor Daylight, but this xenomorph that hatched out of Joe's lung has a kind of interesting marbly, milky pattern on its dome that really makes it stand out compared to the other xenomorphs we've seen. It's almost like this one has a cute birthmark, but since it just hatched out of a single lung organ and not a full human cavity with all the human organs in there, I wonder if it makes this xenomorph something of a runt. Also, since this thing hatched out of Joe's lung, that also might be why there's kind of an affection between it and Wendy/Marcy. Before leaving with Joe, Wendy goes to get Nibs.
I've got all my mind. What's in me? Nobody's messing with my insides. Isn't that right, Mr. Strawberry? What's ours is ours, and nobody can take it.
Mr. Strawberry. Not what I would name a stork-looking bird, although actually I think it might be an emu. I was thinking a blue-footed booty, but it's actually just wearing blue booties on its beaties. But if you look closely, it is wearing a scarf that appears to have strawberries on it. Nibs in particular must have just been a kid with even less of a grasp on reality.
We're all gonna die here. And then the bugs will crawl in and we'll all be ghosts.
Ironically, by being a consciousness removed from its original mortal shell, now making it kind of immortal, Nibs is sort of a ghost already. Curly, of course, doesn't want to leave because remember, she was the sick kid who was specifically in the wheelchair. It wasn't just that she was terminally ill, she also didn't have the ability to walk even. Wendy uses the computer screen touch hacking ability that I think we all kind of forgot that she had to open all the doors into the facility. Okay, years ago, I got this unexpected payment for a job I had finished a long time ago. For me, someone who's naturally anxious about money, that felt like a safety net. My first thought was, great, this will help if things get tight later on. But then a friend of mine who isn't nearly as anxious about money told me, you should search Find Slightly in SME, and proves that he knows full well what they're trying to do.
I know that. I mean, what are you doing going that way? The quickest way to the beach is to take the secure elevator. You're gonna be late.
I think when it comes to this character, we might be seeing a mix of General Hux from The Rise of Skywalker, like, I don't want Prodigy to win, I just need Morrow to lose. And also kind of the chaotic, evil, moral alignment that Noah Hawley wrote in the character of Malvo, Billy Bob Thornton's character in Fargo Season 1. The way Timothy Olyphant is playing the character is actually pretty similar to the way Billy Bob Thornton played Malvo, I would say. Joe, Wendy, and Nibs find the graves of the 6 sick kids based on the mounds that these child bodies are under. It doesn't seem that they were buried that deep. Each headstone has a different color stripe and they're topped with the flowers that each kid was holding during their transference procedure. We see that their names were originally Steve DeMarco, I assume this might have been Toodles, then Jane Mita, I assume this was Curly, Rose Ellis, this was Nibs, Christopher Gabafor, I'm pretty sure this was Smee, and then Marcy Herman, obviously Wendy. This is the most covered with the vines since it is the oldest of these graves, and then Arush Singh, that's Slightly. For Joe, finding Marcy's grave would make this the first time he could really mourn his sister in any kind of funeral setting. Wendy insists that these corpses are not us, and And as the other two walk away, we superimpose with the episode 1 shots of Marcy's body being zipped up in the body bag. The machine guns being carried by the Prodigy soldiers patrolling the grounds resemble the M42A guns carried by the Colonial Marines in 1986's Aliens, including this full body harness rigging that we saw Vasquez using in the initial approach to Hadley's Hope. Arthur goes missing and the facehugger falls down on Smee, scaring the boys, just like the now lifeless facehugger did on Ripley and the others in the 1979 film when they found Kane without the facehugger on his face. But Kane in that scene stayed unconscious for a time after that. Arthur here has already come back to consciousness within seconds, it seems. I love how Slightly instinctively tries to stomp on the facehugger the way you would a bug. But Arthur does not remember the facehugger, at least not at first, just like Kane could not remember anything before he approached the eggs in the lower level of the derelict ship. As we watch Arthur walk with Smee and Slightly in the jungle in this part of the episode, I appreciate the choice by the costumers to put David Riesdahl in a low topping tank top and an open shirt to keep his chest and that tuft of chest hair visible, just to give all of us now paranoid viewers a spot to stare at, waiting for that chest burster to pop out. Arthur begins to flash back to moments of the facehugger latching and now suspects that Slightly and Smee are lying because they're boys and they're bad at hiding it.
Children have to learn how to lie. And you two are still learning. That's the thing about lying. You do it once, and you gotta keep on lying.
There is a parental approach that all of these human adults seem to be taking with the hybrid kids this episode, but we know Arthur's minutes are numbered here, and it's just tragic to see him trying to impart these Danny Tanner lessons to these kids. And if you look closely, Smee reaches out to hold his hand, and he reaches back to grab it, and it's just so sweet. Now, when they first walk out in this one direction, the body of water that they're next to looks like it's an extreme low tide with the tidal bed just as a muddy stretch covered in puddles, but when they turn around to walk back, the water now looks like it's at higher tide. I'm not sure if I'm just seeing the background of the earlier shots wrong, but it is a very cool thing about these kinds of beaches in Thailand that they border specific bodies of water that go right up to these rock walls and caves with minimal waves due to all the other nearby islands and rock formation, causing very few waves at a lot of these beaches and for the tide to just kind of roll in and out like this. It's part of what I think contributes to this whole area's dreamlike appearance. Right when Slightly takes Arthur's hand, it's like the traitorous kiss of death, as this is the moment the chestburster lurches inside of him. And the poor little look of panic from Arthur as he turns to Slightly, so scared. Just like with Kane, there's an initial burst of blood under the shirt as his skin breaks, and then the titular emergence occurs as Smee's face gets sprayed in blood, just like the shocked Nostromo crewmates in the 1979 film, and just like the chestburster did in that famous scene. Its first instinct is to curl its little tail around its little head to protect itself, but also to form a spring coil that it can use to jump out of the corpse and scamper off. Slightly and Smee wade through a lagoon with Arthur's corpse on a raft, and they meet the amphibious unit of Weyland-Yutani soldiers led by Morrow. I love this one on the left, who not only has the exoskeletal mount for his gun, but also a whole video production unit on his helmet, presumably so that Yutani could live stream along. Morrow tells a second unit to shoot to kill, showing how Weyland-Yutani has no issue with open warfare on whatever prodigy forces they would find on this turf, but there could be something more here that I'll get to in a second. And the way Arthur tried to impart grown-up advice to Slightly, now Morrow does it.
Acting like a child. You know what grown-ups do when they make a mistake? They own up to it.
They dump poor Arthur's body, and for this shot, it looks like David Riesdahl actually had to keep a straight face as he gradually sunk into the water and keep his eyes open. That would not have been easy to do. Adam Ines reports to Boy Cavalier that the xenomorph escaped through the waste pipes, which tells us that this prisoner technically got out the same way that Andy Dufresne escaped from Shawshank Prison. Shitty pipe dreams. Boy Cavalier tries to communicate with the Tiasella sheep using the same multilingual greeting that he did earlier this season.
Konnichiwa. Guten Tag. Willkommen. Moshi moshi.
He writes 3.14 on his hand, asking for the next 3 digits of pi. And what's crazy is the Tiasellus must know enough from just hearing these humans speak English to each other, plus being inside Shmuel's head for a bit, combined with other countless intelligent life forms, humans and otherwise, that now have apparently allowed the Tiasellus to understand both what Boy Cavalier is saying and how to translate what it understands pi to be to what these lesser life forms understand pi to be, which would also imply that the Tiasellus can just deduce our, what it might see as very simple, whole number system based on 10 digits, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then those Arabic numerals to be combined in different forms later on. Like, it's even crazy to assume that the concept of 0 did not even exist for all of human history. Maybe the implication here is that mathematics truly is like a cosmic universal language that the Tiasellus understands, at least in its own way. So the Tiasellus plays along with the charade. He stomps once and then 5 times because it's 3.141592.6. So the next digit of pi would be 9, but instead of stomping 9 times, it's like, I'm not gonna do that, and just drops a "F you turd," and then angrily bleats at Boy. It is kind of a poop joke, which to Boy Cavalier, it probably looks like some edgelord humor that, you know, all these Silicon Valley self-proclaimed geniuses love to trade in. Boy's dream from earlier this season was to simply have a conversation with a being smarter than he is, and now he seems to have found his long-sought soulmate. Boy wants to put the Teocellus in the brain of a human.
One of the scientists, maybe? No, a mold scrubber. You know, someone with a low IQ so that we can see the difference.
Mold scrubber. Okay, so the show is showing us that they are aware of that mysterious mold scrubber slash sprayer with a cigarette. I assume that figure is going to come back in some way, but it seems like Boy has a different idea of who to use for this, and I was thinking Dame Sylvia, but the sheep did kind of look at Adam Ines in this moment. I just don't think Boy Cavalier would say, I have a great idea, you. We also don't know what's going on with Adam Ines. Joe, Wendy, and Nibs pass this yellow construction equipment. It's the same bright yellow color as the Weyland-Yutani loader. It's also covered in vines, and it is somewhat evocative of the pilot seat that the space jockey was in on the derelict ship, but seeing it this way kind of looks like ruins and equipment that the people who were on the island in Lost would find, suggesting some kind of mysterious backstory on this island beyond its present use. The fact that any equipment would have been abandoned like this suggests that Prodigy might have even won this island after a turf war with Weyland-Yutani, and Yutani might know of some secrets on that island that are still there. Secrets that seem to have allowed Morrow to initially infiltrate it as quickly as he did, unencumbered, and maybe secrets that could still be used against Boy Cavalier in the finale next week. The other Weyland-Yutani group that Morrow radioed to catches them, but Wendy chirps to the xenomorph that's been following them, and it rapidly savages this group, using its tail to cut off legs and biting dudes' faces, stabbing up through the backs and chests and lifting this guy. Initially, it gets its whole face covered in blood so that it kind of presents itself to the mama like a proud cat that just killed some birds. So she gives him a good boy pat. But yes, it is interesting to see a xenomorph in outdoor lighting like this. We don't normally see this creature in broad daylight. It's kind of interesting. And in this light, the marbly pattern on its head does make its head look somewhat translucent, which was part of the original design for the xenomorph, where they wanted us to vaguely be able to see an elongated human skull beneath that exoskeleton. We see the chestburster get snared in a net that weighs it down, but not by who initially, but we later learn it's Kirsch's forces, and I have no idea how anyone would find something this small and this camouflaged on an entire tropical island, because on the Maginot ship, Chibuzo said that they could kind of track these things using radiation trackers. Maybe that's how they found it. Kirsch allows Morrow's unit to get into the facility, apparently as part of this elaborate trap to catch Morrow.
This isn't over.
Nothing ever is.
And as a third parental figure to the boys this episode, Kirsch says,
You two are grounded.
which is interesting because he's the one who helped them escape. So is that just a performative thing he's saying in front of everyone else to cover his tracks? Hey, we have one more episode from this season, and I feel like we still have a lot of questions about what Kirsch is really all about, what his connection to Boy Cavalier might be, the fact that Boy Cavalier did lose some family member. According to the internet search that Morrow did of him, is Kirsch like a recreated family member that Boy Cavalier made to put daddy under his thumb? We haven't gotten any other further evidence of that throughout the season. I don't have the highest hopes that next week will answer all these questions. The episode ends at the dock. Now, even though it seems deserted, there is some natural tension here. As you'll notice, they pass a 3 on the dock, and then a 2 on the hatch on the boat, and then on the other side of that door, a 1 on Siberian's uniform, which leads to the explosive ending of this episode. The Boy Cavalier tested the Teocellus with numbers. This episode also primed us to think about what numbers to expect next. It's another trap laid by the Prodigy security team, led by Siberian and Rashidi. There's also Ham and Nag, and Nib says,
Mr. Strawberry says, off.
Off the boat. Now.
Big mistake tossing Mr. Strawberry in the water. Ah! Finally, it happened! The super strength that we've all dreaded seeing these kids having, especially in Nibs' case, turns some unfortunate human into mincemeat. She rips out his jawbone. Ham, you'll notice in the background, is just terrified. Nibs uses Nab's jawbone to smack Ham and then pummel her with it, and then backhands her several feet across the water. Siberian gets a few shots into Nibs' chest, and right when Nibs is about to rip her head off, Joe hits Nibs with the stun mode. Wendy's betrayal at Joe doing this, I think, is pretty unfounded, because Nibs was brutally killing several humans in a violent rage, and everyone knows that Nibs ain't right in the head, and all Joe did was stun her into submission. She's not dead, she's just stunned. But it does show how I think Wendy has now, with the exception of Joe, really sided against humanity. I like how this episode ends with all of them on a boat as the xenomorph waits in the bushes, waiting for Wendy's command to attack. It does kind of remind me of the "or face my fury" moment from Ice Age for Continental Drift. Will next week's episode explain why Noah Hawley put that movie so many times in this season? Probably not, but hey, I love it. I think it's cute. Comment down below with your thoughts on this episode, and a special thanks to one of our YouTube members,
Toronto Blue Jays have a new hitting coach. That's David Popkins. The 34-year-old spent the last 3 seasons in the same role with the Twins. Jays, of course, ranked 23rd in runs scored last season.
I think, some of the things I had success with in Minnesota were some of the things that they were hoping to potentially improve upon. And I think it was just one of those things that every conversation we had, it just seemed like a really good fit.
I think Pop's track record in Minnesota, stuck out to us. He really got a lot out of that roster. Very innovative thinker, from biomechanics to approach. Likes to talk about how to get guys better. Him and I kind of hit it off a little bit. We were kind of speaking the same language as to what we thought this team needed, this group needed, and that was before we were even set as a roster.
It's kind of a common theme with David Popkins is to let every player use whatever natural athleticism they have in the box. Be the athlete you are as opposed to overburdening yourself by thinking about too many things.
They really like how he's had a history of helping guys get to their power.
He's very strong at relating to players and at building relationships with them.
He had a reputation and a philosophy that really seemed to come together and jive with the Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays have wanted to find ways to do more damage at the plate, not just get on base, not just hit singles, but be able to have those game-changing type of hits. And one of the elements they're really hoping that David Popkins is able to bring is helping guys get to the big swing, when to take their shots and counts, how to get the best of their bodies to make sure that they're maximizing every little power they have.
The power for this team is starting to come.
It does seem like guys right now are going up confident and able to put big swings on baseballs when they need to.
And now it's the big boys. George Springer is up. And a high fly ball to left center field. It's going, and it is gone! What a scene here at the Rogers Center. George Springer with a grand slam to blow it open.
The Toronto Blue Jays to me have always been a very exciting, exhilarating offense. Getting back to them feeling fearless and aggressive and playing with energy is all the things that I hope to bring and encourage.
This is unbelievable stuff from the Blue Jays right now.
There is an energy and an empowerment, I think, that comes from him. And nothing matters more than trust. Because the moment that a player second guesses the hitting coach, it's all over.
If you don't have that trust, that relationship, that buy-in between player and coach, you're just not going to get the best out of them.
Popkins, to his credit, doesn't come in trying to overwhelm them. He just came in trying to gain their confidence and their trust, and they have done that very quickly.
When you have that 100% trust with a hitting coach, that's when an identity can be formed on an offense.
We've seen some power at times, but more often than not, we've seen guys with good game plans and adjusting that game plan depending on the count and just, for the most part, having really good at-bats.
Getting the most out of each player. We saw him do that with the Twins, and he's gotten great feedback from young players to veteran players that he's worked with, so he's fit in really well.
I think the goal is to always evolve, right? Winning by any means and getting back to being fearless and being a complete fighter is like I would say, like being okay to jab, being okay to, defend, and then also being able to knock people out.
Hit deep, right field, into the night sky and the upper deck at Coors Field.
Blue Jays have now hit 5 home runs in this game, a new season high for home runs by the Blue Jays in a single game.
The profile of their offense continues to change and evolve.
If they can raise the ceiling of this with some offense, that's where you start talking about a team that, hey, they can make a run.
It's a very talented lineup. There's all-stars all over the lineup, and if they can perform close to or at all-star level, you're looking at a team that could be a real force with the bat again.
We talked so often about this team as a team that doesn't strike out, pesky at-bats, tenacious at-bats, puts balls in play. Now they're starting to find the seats a little more.
Sorry, wax beans, eel toast. So at Cavallini, we're looking to bring the same mentality with cooking that we've done at the Four Horsemen. I'm hesitant to say it's super Italian because in New York City, there are a lot of people cooking really amazing, beautiful Italian food here. We're just doing our version of it the best we can. I've been to Venice a couple times. You have this dish there, this cicchetti called a sarde and sour, and I wanted to do something with those flavors, but with a more uncommon ingredient. This is some freshwater eel that's been blanched lightly. This we batter and deep fry. It's basically a slice of baguette, this really nice, bright agrodolce, and then a little piece of fried eel that sits on top of it. It's just a really nice little bite and a good way to start the meal.
We usually, as a prep team, get here at around 8, and kind of the first thing for us to do is our pasta production. On the menu right now, we have 2 handmade pastas. One's going to be Trofie and one's Farfallone. The 2 extruded pastas that we have are gnocchi sardi and then bucatini. We make pasta every day. There's either dough production going on, pasta extrusion, pasta shaping. It's always something. So this is our Trofie dough. The dough is made up just of coarse semolina and hot water. The hot water, since the semolina is so coarse, helps it come together. We get all of our flour from a flour mill in Italy, in the region of Emilia-Romagna.
I think the Trofie was important for us because it's kind of a known thing in the pasta world, how difficult it is to make. And we worked on it for a couple weeks in the basement, Max and I just shaping, trying out different hydrations on the dough, different flours.
The mixer kind of gets us like 80% of the way there, and then we can do the rest by hand. I'll kind of take each of these doughs and give them like an initial kind of shape and knead, and then I'm just gonna wrap them and let them sit for about 20 minutes, and then come back and really kind of knead and shape them into its final form.
Laters. I'm from California originally. The Bay Area being so reliant on incredible produce, I feel like I brought that same mentality with me to New York.
It's a lot of produce. Hopefully it'll get us through the week. It's very aromatic down here right now.
We just got back from the Union Square Farmers Market. We hit it about 3 times a week. Some of this stuff is for Four Horsemen. We pick up for our other restaurant as well. This is the kind of stuff that gets us really excited. It's always good to see the farmers at the market too. And a lot of our menu is dictated by what they do and the hard work that they put in. My food's not showy or fussy. It's very pared down. But I think in order to cook that kind of food, you have to lean really heavily on the level of ingredients that you're bringing in.
This is for our beef tendon dish. In Italian, it's nervetti. I'm gonna cut the tendon into kind of more manageable pieces. As you can see, it's quite tough, which is why it has to braise for such a long time. We really want to break down all of that gelatin that's in there. So you can kind of see there's a lot of gelatinous cartilage. So we put about 30 tendons into the tendon braise here.
I had the nervetti in Venice at this little restaurant, and they just serve like chunks of the tendon on a plate, a bottle of vinegar on the table. I really wanted to serve that here. I was like, man, nobody's gonna be excited about that.
We're gonna add some citrus peels, some onions, some celery, fennel seed, this garlic that we've got cut in half, and then we've got some salt. We're gonna take this upstairs. It's still gonna get the liquid, water, and white wine. To throw it into the oven. It's gonna braise for about 5 to 7 hours. That's it.
Ricina beans. They're a really cool bean from Umbria that one of our purveyors is bringing in exclusively for us. They're really cool, a really small bean, similar in size to flageolet. They're for this tuna dish that we're doing. And we hope that they really love the tuna, but my hope is that they get into the beans and they're like, whoa, what are these beans? And that becomes the highlight of the dish. With beans, we're very serious about the procedure. I salt in the beginning 70% of the way and then closer to the end. But I find that if you don't salt the beans a little bit in the beginning, what you end up with is an underseasoned bean and just liquid that's really seasoned. These beans in particular, even though they're quite small, cooked for about 3 hours. Sachet, some aromatics in here, thyme, bay leaves. It's one of those things we don't like to rush. Right, Max?
Never rushing the beans, chef.
These guys are brainwashed about beans. It's bluefin tuna toro. We're getting in right now with a little bit of age on it, which is nice. It's a little firmer. You lose some water content in the fish, and then umami comes out a little bit more. I'm just removing the loin from the skin. We'll render some of this fat and get it back into the beans later. Try not to waste anything. We tried this dish with a couple other cuts, and it just didn't hit the same. I think because the rest of the dish is so lean that it really needs the fattiness from the fish. This is like about a 3.5 ounce portion, so it's a pretty generous amount of tuna toro. For me, this is my favorite piece. Just the way the muscle kind of falls apart when it gets cooked slightly and then the fat melts a little bit. Salting it briefly just draws out a little bit of that excess moisture. Then we rinse it, we dry it off, and then on the pickup, we sear it dry. When we opened, I had this grand plan of doing super regional Italian cooking. And I actually built out a menu. And once we got in the space and once it started developing, I just felt like that wasn't authentic to me and to what I do. I felt like I was cooking out of cookbooks and cooking other people's recipes. It smells so good.
It's our tendon. Now that we've got it nice and braised and broken down, we're just gonna pull it out of the liquid here and just sort through, get all the tendon out. So we still have all these aromatics in there.
I mean, just look at it, man. Jiggly. It's like you can't even tell what's garlic confit or what's tendon. It's amazing.
We're just gonna strain off this liquid. We reserve this one to serve with the dish, but then also we need to have it in order to press with the tendon so that it can kind of set, because this is gonna be very gelatinous. It's pretty important to do this while it's still hot.
This stuff is like, I don't know, napalm or something. It like sticks to you and is just insanely hot. You don't want a beef tendon burn.
Not super pleasant. Rookie mistake is to press it before you get it into the walk-in. You end up with a huge mess that way and a very heavy thing. Corner coming down.
What we do is we chill it down, press it into a tureen essentially.
We came up with the idea of slicing it this way. This is kind of what you end up with. So it's super important to us, Ali specifically, that we slice it and keep it this consistently thin. Yeah, it's great. It tastes like a beef salad. Incredible.
I feel like in this day and age, it's hard to surprise people. A lot of times you feel like you don't have to go somewhere because it's been so saturated in social media that you're kind of like, oh yeah, I feel like I can wrap my head around that place. I like to feel like we have little surprises here and there and moments that a guest can be surprised. And like the beef tendon or the mervetti, that's kind of a fun, approachable way for someone to try that ingredient. When you shave it that thin on a meat slicer, it really just like melts on your tongue. This is some of the jelly, which is left over from the braise. It's all strained out. And that's gonna add some additional texture and a lot of like savory, umami, beefy flavor. It's a very cool dish, super refreshing for the summertime. And that's it. One of the big reasons we opened the Cavallini is because we had such a strong depth of cooks and also people on the front of house side that we felt had maybe hit a ceiling at Horseman, and we wanted to give them a little more room for growth. And Ben, who's the chef de cuisine here, was my sous chef at Full Horseman for the last 6 years. And we all worked together on this project from day one. All right, so we're gonna head over to the Four Horsemen right now. I've been pretty tied down with E. Cavallini the last few months, but I've still been checking in on these guys every day. When we opened, there wasn't much in the realm of a natural wine bar in New York City. So, man, how's it going? Good. So Dylan's kind of taken the reins of the menu at the Four Horsemen over the last year or so. Dylan and I have traveled all over the world. He's been one of the core members of my team. We've done a bunch of events together. He put this menu together for the Eater event that we did.
Yeah, it was great having Eater and Capital One come in and let us cook for them. We did the oeuf mayonnaise with Acetra caviar and squidding, a green tomato dish that we pickle in-house, some chiffonade lovage that we're getting from the market. Hira masa with Bonnie melon, kind of riff on leche de tigre that we had on the menu when I first started.
It's nice that this tiny place has taken us all over the world. These events give us opportunities to really share what we do with a lot of people. Our goal was never to get the Michelin star. I still think we are an outlier in that world, which I feel like is something we're proud of. We're doing what we do. We got recognized for it, and we didn't have to change who we were. At E. Cavallini, the dining room is over twice the size of Horseman, and I feel like I finally have my dream kitchen a little bit.
Kind of our last big task for the day is going to be to roll our trophy. As you can see, we have all hands on deck right now, so we can get to service. So it's this motion of just rolling the spiral against the table, and you really just kind of get a rhythm. It's certainly like kind of like a dance between the pressure, the angle, and the speed of your movement. It's kind of crazy that we're doing this and serving as much of it as we are. Every portion has at least 100 trophy in it.
In Liguria, you'll find like grandmothers on the street just constantly making it, and it takes 4 cooks here an hour and a half a day making enough for a service. So it's definitely a labor of love. I mean, yeah, I haven't done it in a while, but it's just like riding a bike-ish. I'm definitely getting some not so great ones, but I'm honest. I'm honest about it, you know? Constantly chasing the perfect spiral.
It's relaxing, and sometimes we'll listen to Moby Dick while we're doing it.
I say that the whale in question must have been no other than Moby Dick.
I don't know, Avery, why Moby Dick?
It's a long-ass book.
A long-ass book.
All right, let's do it. It's 5 o'clock. We're doing some tasters right now. Doors are open, letting in the first guests. It's crunch time right now. We've got all of our prep done. Everyone's feeling good. Everyone's smiling, which is key. And we're gonna put out some good food. It's gonna be great. Fire wax beans, mussels. The trophy we serve with a pesto sauce, which is traditional in the region that it comes from, which is Liguria. It's hard not to put basil in every dish, especially at an Italian-inspired restaurant. And that was a perfect vessel for a summer pasta dish. The only change we make from the classical dish that you would find in Liguria is we add this bel pernol cheese. It's cow's milk cheese. It's covered in black pepper, and that just adds a little bit of acidity and richness to the dish. A couple of chefs that have come in so far that run pretty well-established Italian restaurants in New York have been like, holy shit, you guys are putting trophy on the menu? Like, that's crazy. And that kind of stuff's really cool to us. We're gonna cook off the tuna right now. The fish is dried out nicely at this point. We'll sear it off in a steel pan, really high heat. Try to get a crust on one side, but we're still leaving it mid-rare. And that's getting served over the beans that are picked up in a nice bean broth. But then we also add some tomatoes that have been slow roasted. And then it gets finished with a good amount of this gremolata that has chervil in it. So really nice like fennel, anise notes. Just adds a lot of freshness to the dish.
So when you bite into it, you get this like really nice fresh herby bite up front, followed by like the super fatty and rich tuna that I think goes really nicely together.
It's nice too because as you eat it, it falls off of the tuna and it becomes part of the beans, and then the fats from the tuna kind of make their way into the beans as well, and you end up with this really beautiful broth as you're like finishing the dish. Both at Horseman and Cavallini, I want the food to feel approachable. I'm not chef flexing on the menu. It reads as something very approachable, but there are still some surprises and there's still a great depth of flavor and technique. And that's
It's like a clear tomato. It's crazy. Later, chat. Peace out, boys.